made up of the following: Professor Adamu Wada of the Department of Economics, University of Jos. Please round it. We also have Dr. Solomon Anjide. He is a senior fellow in the Research Directorate of NIPSS, Uru. There is also Dr. Philemon Hagai. He's an agriculturist, a private practitioner. We also have Mrs. Ayuba Ayaku from the Plateau Radio Television Corporation, Jos. And also Mrs. Rachel Nuhu Birma. Last but not the least, Mr. Isaac Soboyajo, renowned journalist and the state correspondent for Tribune newspaper in Jos. We also have distinguished members of the faculty of NIPSS who are also seated up there. Please, a round of applause for them. And also, our participants designate. I won't call you participants yet because you have not been properly inducted yet. Please, a round of applause for our participants designate. Before I invite the moderator to invite the presidential candidate for the Accord Party, may I invite Mrs. Oluwakemi Aino to read the citation of our distinguished guests of honor. Mrs. Aino.
Thank you very much, Mr. David. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I stand on the already established protocol. I have the duty here to give the citation on the presidential candidate of the Accord Party. Professor Christopher Irene Imumolen, who is currently vying for the position of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in 2023, under the umbrella of Accord Party, has a strong passion and mission to change the narrative of governance in Nigeria. He is a seasoned entrepreneur and a philanthropist. He is also a man with strong passion, education, whose impact on the education sector globally cannot be overemphasized. He is the president of one of the largest educational institutions in Africa, the Joint Professional Training and Support International, JPTS, through which millions of people globally have acquired international tertiary degrees through its scholarship programs. Joint Professional Training and Support, JPTS, currently has over 120 students on scholarship and still counting. He is also the Vice Chancellor of the Global Wealth University, the President of South Amazon University, Costa Rica. Professor Imumolen, who has 2 PhDs in engineering research and educational management, is the President of Global Wealth System. He is also the President of Unique Foundation, one of the largest NGO in Nigeria with millions of members, and has supported millions of Nigerians through various empowerment programs, scholarship, skill acquisition over the past 13 years. Professor Chris is a courageous, outstanding, extraordinary, and bold personality who has, through his various platforms, created jobs for hundreds of thousands of people within and outside Nigeria over the years. He's the only black man to establish 3 universities in 3 different continents of the world. His good works have earned him several awards and recognition globally. He is currently listed in the World Book of Greatness, UK. He has earned one of the world's prestigious awards, the Oscar of Humanitarian Civility Award. He has also given over 150 children in Nigeria and other third world countries scholarships. he holds the award as the most innovative educational personality in Nigeria, AfriSave Awards. Professor Chris Imumolen is also an awardee of the Forbes Outstanding Academic Achievement Award 2022. In the year 2022, he personally secured the release of over 200 prisoners from the maximum prison in Nigeria and ensured their integration into the society through scholarship and skill acquisition programs. He is also the Ado of Abuja. His rich depth of experience and expertise has seen him serve in various capacities till date. He served as Senior Technical Advisor on Oil and Gas Monitoring and Evaluation to Akwa Ibom State. He also served as Nigerian President, America Institute of Certified Professionals, Technical Partner, NASPEC Kuwait, and led the development of HSE centers in Nigeria and overseas. Africa Regional ISO Consultant Valve Technology in India. He also served as a board member, African Representative, ASIC UK, International Universities Accreditation Board UK. Was President Oil and Gas Education and Research Institute, President Onshore Offshore Oil and Gas Professionals, President Unique Empowerment and Employment Initiative Unique Foundation, President of Global Wealth, an organization that has raised over 200 millionaires from grassroots, which is described as Zero to Hero Initiative. Professor Christopher is the only Nigerian on the board membership to the World Presidential Civility Club, North America, covering the US and Canada. And some of his professional qualifications include Certified Onshore Offshore HSE General Manager Course, Certified Project Managers Course, PMP Primavera, Certified Plant Design and Maintenance System, 3D Automation, Certified HISIS Aspen Plant Process and Stimulation, PIDS, International Association of Drilling Contractor, IADC, Certified Drilling Technology. Amongst others, the list goes on. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to celebrate this icon of educational excellence, professional pedigree, intellectual sagacity, and political trailblazer, Professor Christopher Imumolen.
Thank you very much. Now that we have known who our guest is, it's proper to now invite the Director General, welcome him formally, and our distinguished guest present here.
Well, our very distinguished guest, I told you outside that we are very honored and indeed delighted to have you and welcome you to this very serene and conducive environment for learning, for knowledge production, and also for debate. We're very happy to afford this platform to you and your team, the directing staff, and distinguished members of our audience, both in the hall and online. We welcome you to this platform that is fast becoming a veritable platform that we extend to all political actors to keep faith with Nigerians in expressing why they have this desire to lead the country and how they intend to meet the aspirations of the teeming masses of Nigeria. And you would agree with me that these aspirations are growing more intent and intensive by the day. Indeed, this platform is striving to become a platform that will be available not just for now, but for the near future, in terms of extending an arm of welcome and an arm of fellowship to all people who at any level wish to lead Nigeria. We believe that such a platform in-house, in-country, is extremely important. Let me say on behalf of the Director General of the National Institute for Policy and Strategic Studies, Professor Ayo Omotayo, that the National Institute will continue to cooperate and collaborate with all those who have a vision for a better society. I believe that from the profile of the presidential candidate of ACORD, it is clear that he has a vision for our country. And today, it is his opportunity to tell Nigerians just why and how he intends to extend this vision, to actualize this vision and make it a reality, not just for those who are close, but also for those who are far and wide. So thank you very much. While I was speaking, the Secretary Director of Administration walked in. I will leave the moderator to tell us about that. But we look forward to a very, very rich and robust interchange with you today. Thank you very much and welcome to us all.
Thank you very much, sir. The Secretary and Director of Administration, NIPSS, Brigadier General CFJ Udaya, retired, just walked in. Please, can we give him a round of applause? We are now going into the interactive session with the presidential aspirant, and it is my pleasure to invite Mr. Samuel Osimen, who is the Institute editor, to conduct the exercise. So, Mr. Osimen, please, over to you.
Maybe because I'm not very tall, I always like to stand up when I'm... Good afternoon, everybody. And it's a pleasure to welcome you all to the National Institute. Particularly, we want to welcome our guest, Professor Imumolen. You are welcome. We wish you all the best in your aspirations. Before we invite you to deliver your manifesto, your vision, your plans, your aspirations with regards to your ambition to become the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we wish to make two things clear very, very quickly. The first thing I want to make clear, Professor Imumolen, is that in the National Institute, we operate what we call the principle of non-attribution. Now, the principle of non-attribution means that whatever you say in this place, and indeed not just you, but every other person in this hall, whatever you say here will not be held against you by anybody. In other words, you are free to express yourselves freely, to say whatever it is you want to say, to come out as hard as you want to come out, but at the end of the day, to make a contribution towards our national development aspirations. Second thing I want to make clear to everybody is that this session that we are having here this afternoon is also being beamed live. Even as we are here now, there are people from all over the world watching live. Facebook Live, on YouTube, on traditional media, and indeed we have feed on Twitter going live. So all that you are doing here is not just restricted to this hall. Nigerians are also participating in this event, and people from all over the world, from other countries of the world, are also participating in this event online. So having said that, it is my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to invite to the podium, or indeed if you wish to sit and you make your presentation, to invite Professor Christopher Irene Imumolen to please come forward and deliver his manifesto. Put your hands together, please.
Sorry, please, I would like to respectfully stand on existing protocol, because I understand that we've spent so much time, and this is just, so I want to be very quick about this presentation. First and foremost, I want to indeed thank the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies for this opportunity given to us to speak and be heard. I think, and I know that this is our Chatham House. This is where we should speak to Nigerians. This is where Nigerians should hear us. And I think I'm very impressed with this. And I'll be very quick about this. My name is Professor Chris, as I was introduced. I am the presidential candidate running on the platform of Accord. Accord is the first political party on the ballot paper. And again, I'm the youngest presidential candidate. As a matter of fact, I'm the only youth in the race. My contesting for this position is clear. Is to give the youth of our country a voice. Because I believe and I know certainly that the responsibility to take Nigeria out of the political challenge, economic challenge we have today is a mandate of our generation. In the world today, you can clearly see that the age 40 to 50 has been attributed to an age that is tied greatly to aggressive development. Countries like Grenada, France, Canada, the UK, who have bigger and larger economy than Nigeria, have also seen the need to engage men of that age bracket in their political circle. My vying for this position is to encourage Nigerian youths to know that we have a voice and we can make a change. We can actually contribute, not just as a support system only, as one who is in the table to lead the direction and make sure Nigeria becomes that country we truly desire. I took up this challenge because I believe I know I have what it takes. Looking at my antecedents as the only candidate who perhaps can privately boast, the only presidential candidate who perhaps can boast of serious impact in the Nigerian people privately. I have challenged most of the other candidates, some who had served as governors before. I said, let us discuss what have we done. Let's talk about what we have done privately as humans. What have we done privately in developing this country? And perhaps one of those. I know when they were reading my CV, my profile, many persons were like, where is this person coming from? There are so many Nigerians who have better profile than myself, who are doing well in the diaspora in Nigeria, but the fear of the kind of politics we play in Nigeria has set them aback. And if we continue to have that fear, believe me, we are not going to have a country we truly envisage. So we need Nigerians who have ideas, who have demonstrated passion and value privately to begin to plunge into politics and change the political landscape for Nigerians. We are going through a lot as a country. What we need now are leaders who possess value, who possess passion to run our economy, who have the knowledge base, who have demonstrated that privately. You know, there is probably no state in Nigeria, let me just blow my trumpet, that I don't have not less than 1,000 students on my scholarship board. I've been doing that for the past 13 years. I wasn't doing it because of politics. I was doing it because I understand that education still remains one of the driving force to national birth and national discovery. If Nigerians are not educated, then how do we drive the economy? If Nigerians are not properly educated, how do we have our mind transformed to converting Nigeria to the country we truly envisage? Most of the supporters you see here today are not political supporters. They are also part of those that have enjoyed our scholarship. So if you are here today and you are part of the scholarship candidate for Professor Chris, can I just hear you? Just say something. They are all scholarship in Plateau State. There's no state I travel to. They are my followers. They are the reasons why we feel that Nigeria can become better. They are not my relative. I don't know them anywhere. But I feel that we as individuals should have this passion for humanity to drive our country. I think we have gotten to a point where we need a father as a president. When I say father, it's not by age, it's by heart. Someone who feels the passion of Nigeria who cries because of the pain our mother is going through, who feels the pain that we go through. We need a father as a president. We've not had that. We've had presidents who just want to be president for personal interest, for various reasons. We have gotten to that point where we need to start looking beyond politics. I know we have 18 political parties. It's beyond that for president. We need a president who can aggressively, who understand how to aggressively take Nigeria out of the poverty we have. We have 133 million Nigerians live below poverty. I used to hear that when we were small that we people live in poverty. Now we are now living below. So there's something below poverty. 133 million out of 200 million population. That number is more than the population of West African region. We are in a serious problem. As sincere Nigerians who know that one day we will always account for our life, at this point we should be looking at that candidate who have privately demonstrated passion and value. At independence in 1960, Nigeria portrayed an image of a promising country that in no time played a leadership role in Africa and the world. Our leaders were treated with utmost respect and dignity at home and abroad. However, 62 years after, Nigeria is bedeviled by insecurity, banditry, kidnapping, high unemployment, low economic growth, high inflation, indebtedness, and weak currency, corruption, and numerous other vices. As we approach the election, it is important that we continue to show Nigerians what we want to do. It has become necessary to outline our manifesto, which we intend to pursue if we are elected as the president on the platform of Accord. Nigeria, with a population of 208 million approximately, the sixth largest in the world, the highest in Africa, occupy about 923,000 square kilometers territory. They're the third largest, that is the third largest country in the world. An oil-producing country and a member of OPEC, the country's scorecard in terms of microeconomic performance and other development indicators are negatively correlated to its human and mineral resources endowment. For example, the Institute of Economic and Peace rated Nigeria as 143rd in Global Peace Index in 2022. It is among the 30th most insecure country in the world. Nigeria also is 122nd country by GDP per capita in 2011 as published in January 2022. In global ranking of country to service their debt, Nigeria is 93 out of 96 ranked as at June. Billions lost to corruption, billions lost to ransom for kidnapping. Universities closed for 10 months. I am a colleague because I'm also a vice chancellor. I've been in the educational industry for many years. So I understand the value for education, what education means to building the mind of Nigeria. Yes, we might be looking at Nigerians and foreigners to come in, but Nigerians and Nigerians are the first person to solve our local problem. If we don't invest rightly in our education, believe me, as a nation, we'll build valueless leaders who take us nowhere. The GDP grew at 3.4% per annum. This measure paints a dismal picture of our country. Nigeria has a population growth of about 2.5%. As the Human Capital Index by UNDP on industrial development, Nigeria has energy or electricity per capita is one of the lowest in the world. As one who has also invested in other part of the world, my citation said I have invested in 3 countries, a university. Many persons ask me a question, why did you not have a university in Nigeria? It took us about 15 years trying to establish a university in Nigeria. One of the biggest challenges we have is that we do not have an economic and a friendly business policies for investors to strive in Nigeria. One of the first things we will be doing is to create policies that will attract investors. Is to create policies that will ensure that we create enabling environment for business to strive. we are going to create a private sector driven economy to ensure that all that is needed for Nigerians who are resourceful. Nigerians are resourceful people. All over the world, we see Nigerians medical doctors striving and doing very well in other part of the world. Engineers, how come we have limitation in our country? It took us about 15 years trying to establish one university. In countries like US, we have a school, Pan American College in California. It took us just 6 months to establish similar thing. In Ghana, in Togo, we have schools there. It took us a year to establish a school, a university in those countries. In Rwanda, for example, you can open a company in 9 hours. In Malaysia, investing in an oil and gas sector, you have tax rebate and tax exemption for 5 years. These are countries that understand how to quickly drive their economy to where it ought to be. They've created policies and implemented intentional to drive and move the economy to where it ought to be. But in Nigeria, we say a thing, but we do the other because of so many intents. Are you aware that Nigerian visa is still one of the most difficult visas to get in China and the US? A country that needs investor, making it difficult for investors to come into Nigeria to invest. Not because it's difficult, but because of the concept of corruption. We must, if truly want to drive a country, begin to do the right thing. In 2050, for example, Nigeria will become the third largest country in the world. We'll become a nation of about 1 billion people. What are we doing? The challenge we have today was the fact that leaders who have led us for too long did not envisage, did not plan towards the population explosion we have today. And we are going to become a nation of 1 billion population in 2050. What is our plan for that time? We need to be sincere as a country. We need to begin to look at who lead us. Nigerians as a country, we have all the resources any part of the world can be blessed with. But one thing we lack, which is leadership. We must begin to have priorities to choosing the right leaders, especially leaders for president, people who are fresh, who are not affiliated to the set of those that have caused the problem we currently find ourselves. As at 1960, when Nigeria got our independence, Nigeria was at the same level of development with countries like Brazil, India, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. Many countries like Botswana, Mauritius, Singapore, that got their independence after Nigeria do better in terms of rate of growth and economic development. Nigeria still grappled with the problem of insecurity, internal division, low level of integrity, poverty, inflation, indebtedness, internal displaced people, etc. All these problems have been attributed to the cumulative effect of bad government by both the military dictators and civilian rulers that govern Nigeria within the last 62 years. As we approach, like I said, the election, in the heat of the negative consequence of COVID-19 pandemic and Russia-Ukraine war, it becomes necessary that Nigeria begin to look at what the Accord, which is one of the 18 political parties for the 2023 election, has for Nigeria. We have an incontrovertible fact that only an industrialized revolutionary program can reset Nigeria. It requires a set of policy that span the social, political, and economic realm. An industrial revolution program requires a combination of policies and institutions in political, social, and economic realm for maximum effectiveness and performance. It is also provide a synergy among and between the different arms and level of government, which while leveraging on our advanced ecosystem, it will address the scientific, technological, and normative goal of our country. It is very unfortunate that today some countries like South Africa are discussing about the effect of fourth industrial revolution that is in the offspring. Why we Nigerians we have not actually realized the first, second, and industrial revolution. Our commitment to Nigeria project transcend mere wish and rhetorics. Our track record of service of humanity through various channels over the last decade and half is well documented. Long before the dream to use the vehicle of politics to crystallize our vision of reaching out to people on a massive scale, was conceived, we have been known to invest heavily in human capacity development by awarding scholarship to indigent, less privileged students all over the country. As at the last count, over 500,000 Nigerians have benefited from our scholarship scheme in the last few years. We have single-handedly bankrolled the award of loans and grants to farmers as well as small, medium SMEs to grow their business and contribute meaningfully to the country's economic growth. We have built roads, installed transformers in some communities to enhance power supply, as well as sunk boreholes to help to solve pipe-borne water shortage in some communities in Nigeria. The success of these private initiatives has since fired our belief that we can do more if we are opportune to win the presidency in this year's election. I want to assure all Nigerians today that the zeal with which we have achieved so much success in helping Nigerians in all walks of life to achieve their hopes and dreams despite the odds will be evident in the way we go about the business of governance at all levels of presidency come May 2023. Let's look at the issue of power. The problem of irregular and inepileptic power supply has been with us forever. Despite trillions of naira pumped into the sector in more than 20 years since Nigeria returned to democratic rule, the power problem has remained intractable. It is one of the sectors in which my governance will declare an emergency as we seek to find a lasting solution. Just as we would be seeking ways to upgrade the power generation from its present 4,000 megawatts to 10 to 100,000. What Nigeria actually needs to service the 45 million household is 100,000 megawatts. I've consulted for a company in India owned by Mukesh Ambani. It's called Reliance Global. Reliance Global, just a company, produces more power than the entire Nigeria. A company in India produces 36,000 megawatts. And the whole country, since 1960, we've been able to produce no more than 6,000. We understand the problem, and we know it is a policy problem. We shall also be working strongly with the National Electric and Regulatory Power Commission in a bid to liberalize the sector and make it more responsive in our collective power needs. Education. Education is the key to illuminating the mind of an individual. It therefore means that an uneducated people is in darkness. A country that needs speedy development must make education of its citizen top priority. That is why we would be paying more serious attention to the country's education sector in order to upgrade it to the level it should be a tool to enlightenment and self-discovery that it's meant to be. We talk about education, we're talking about the formal, informal, and the non-formal education. We're talking about the research, investment in research as a country. We must not begin to only depend on inventions and innovations from other world. As Nigerians, when was the last time we have invented and we have discovered as a country? We must usually, and as an academia, I believe also that we must also begin to not just increase the budget for education. Currently, we have about 7.2% of national budget budgeted for education, which is even less than the UNESCO benchmark, which is 10%. I have offered to say that we even increase it to 20% and ensure that every single dime budgeted for education hits the ground and fix the problem. My government will introduce the bursary award system to encourage learning and fast-tracking the process of education. For example, in a state like Sokoto, only one student enrolled for GCE. Only one student. In a state like Zamfara, schools have been shut down for the last 3 years because of insecurity. I would aggressively introduce digital form of learning so that when schools are shut down, education continues. All over the world, cross-blending education has been implemented. Nigerians are now ICT savvy. Our mothers in the village now check their Facebook. In short, most people in the village get to know what is happening in Nigeria before many of us in the city. So Nigerians we are consuming so much technology. We must also begin to look at how to adopt that to fixing our educational problem. We must begin to rejig our curriculum and make it a practical one that will solve our national problem. Abandoned projects. According to available statistics, there's about 54,000 abandoned projects in Nigeria. Some of them are sadly economically viable projects, which, if we work fully installed capacity, would provide source of livelihood for hundreds of thousands of quality manpower roaming the streets in search of job. My government will leave no stone unturned as it will work vigorously to complete the projects scattered all over Nigeria and make them contribute to the country's growth. Porous border. Without doubt, our heightened security challenge over the last few years owed its origin to unchecked influx of foreigners into the country. There are at least 4,000 illegal routes into Nigeria, with insufficient manpower and political will to effectively police this illegal entry point. The country has become highly vulnerable to external attacks. Any wonder then that the case of banditry and kidnapping has reached unmanageable proportion? We own one of the facts of the insecurity to unchecked border, but we know there are other causes. One of the major causes of our insecurity is the economic hardship. A country with 133 million people live under poverty, with 70% of the youth unemployed, underemployed, with no peace. So we have plans to aggressively and quickly take Nigeria out of poverty, create more jobs through so many schemes that we are proposing, and we know it's going to work because it has worked privately and it will work. Health. A poor health delivery system is the reason why more and more Nigerians troop to foreign hospitals these days to take care of their health needs. It is bad enough that our hospitals are today mere consulting clinics with insufficient facilities or drugs to take care of the sick ones among us. But the latest trend, where our qualified physicians have been migrating to foreign lands in search of better work conditions, is as disturbing as it is to the threat of a continuous existence of a viral health sector. My government will be taking a critical look at the health delivery system with a view to effecting a total overhaul. Apart from equipping and maintaining existing hospital, we shall encourage private investment in this sector to stimulate competition and make it affordable to average Nigeria. Social welfare. We have not been known to pay adequate attention to issues of social welfare for our citizens since independence. My government will reverse this trend by establishing a more responsive social welfare scheme that will take care of the aged, orphan, unemployed, and person living with disabilities. Many of us will say, oh, I'm mentioning a lot of capital projects. Where would we get this money from? You want to know, because one of the biggest challenges is where are we going to get money from? We need a leader who understands wealth creation. I'm a technologically based professor. For example, I belong to a group of young, progressive individuals all over the world. One of us who recently sold an app just by human. See, the biggest resources we have as a nation is the human capital, human capacity, human resources. Kinedu Chorom in the UK sold an app to Apple. When he got to UK, he discovered that the Google app could not navigate New York properly. He developed an app. The app is Oopstop. Sold that app to Apple for $1 billion. $1 billion in today's conversion is about 700 billion naira. How many states will generate 700 billion naira in a year? That is the power of investing in Nigeria. If we invest rightly in Nigeria, we would get the money back to Nigeria. One of the very first things in my manifesto is building a digital economy. As a digital professor, I understand it, how to build a digital economy. I understand how to convert Nigeria to a credit economy system. I understand how to make sure that Nigeria become a private sector driven economy. But for this to happen, we must fix our power. We must have a 24 hours economy, and that by itself will double the job and reduce the unemployment rates. We understand some of these things. Infrastructure, before I conclude. A country development index is usually measured by the quality of infrastructure it has. My government will do all in its capacity and power, and within the limit of available resources, to build more roads, budgets, bridges, railway, maintain existing one, as well as link up more communities to stimulate economic activities and ensure huge free movement across the country. Corruption. Corruption is the reason Nigeria have largely failed to fulfill its potential as a nation. But we believe that adopting a different strategy, we would be able to truly tackle this menace. My government will ensure that all sector of the economy is fully digitalized. A digital economy will discourage corruption and sharp practices, as there will be monitoring mechanisms that will act as checks in the system. In conclusion, Nigeria had a number of national development plans that began with the first national development plan of the 1962 to 1968. Nigeria development attempt has cumulated with National Development Plan, even the one that was the President Buhari administration, 2015-2021. The military regime had contributed to the inconsistency in the development planning of the country. An Accord government would change the narrative by ensuring continuity in policies formation without sacrificing the need for change necessitated by new trend in developing an emerging national dream and aspiration in line with innovations and discovery which enhance growth and development that rhyme with the global realities. For that reason, Nigeria needs to adopt a digital technology trend in order to free itself and from string of poverty and underdevelopment. I want to really appreciate us for giving me this platform to speak to us today. And I know that we have a manifesto here that is about 200 pages. It covers everything we intend to do, from digitalization of Nigeria economy, civil service reform, and a lot of things that we intend to do. I believe that as we begin to take questions here, I will have an opportunity to dive more into some other points that I've not been able to address while speaking to you. Thank you for having me. God bless you.
Well, I think we should give him another round of applause for that. Thank you very much, Professor Imumolen. A few things are picked up from his presentation this afternoon. But one, he has told us that his ambition is driven by a desire to give the youth a voice and to provide a platform for the youth to contribute to Nigeria's development project. He was quick to remind us that he himself is a youth, and was reading a little bit about Professor Imumolen, and it was a pleasant surprise for me to discover that he's 39 years old, 39. Okay, so that's wonderful. He has also told us that his ambition is driven by a commitment to make selfless contribution to our national development aspirations. He has said his vision is anchored on accelerating economic growth, eradicating corruption, improving security, bringing about industrial revolution. And he has also said that his priorities will focus on the power sector, education, IT, infrastructure, healthcare, social welfare, and so much more. He has told us that he has a manifesto more than 200 pages in length. What we are going to be doing this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, is to we have a powerful panel in place. The panel is intentionally selected to ensure that we have a good representation of people. Number one, from the academia, we have seasoned journalists who are also part of the panel. Then we have policy and strategy experts who are also part of the panel. So the members of the panel will shortly be interrogating the manifesto that we have listened to. We'll be bringing out the fine points of that manifesto, and perhaps they will also be asking some questions for us to get clarity, to have a better understanding of what Professor Imumolen intends to bring to the table that is different from what we already have on the table. So I'm going to be inviting members of the panel. There are 5 of them. All right, I've been given a message to say that you can deliver, since you are not as short as myself, you can sit down there and deliver your intervention. So we have Mr. Isaac Shobayo, he represents the Tribune. We have Professor Philemon Hagai, used to be here in the National Institute as a senior research fellow. He will also be giving us his insight. We have Dr. Timothy Anjide, we have Mrs. Ayuku. Let's start with Mr. Isaac Shobayo. I'll just start from this. You can sit down. You can use the microphone that is right there on the table. Let us have your intervention. You have 5 minutes because we don't have all the time. As soon as we are done with the panel, we will go straight to the floor. let me also say that there are people who are joining us on Zoom who will also be taking. You have 5 minutes.
Hello, Prof. Yeah, my question goes this way. The debt profile of Nigeria is in trillions. And many people have been wondering how we get to this level. Now you have in your manifesto, which embrace so many aspects of life. Where will you source for funds to finance all these programs? And number two is that you are contesting as the president, you are contesting the presidential election on the platform of Accord Party. How formidable is the structure of the party across the country?
All right, Professor Imumolen, may I crave your indulgence? Perhaps, do you want to take everything at once? All right, let's take Professor Philemon Hagai.
Thank you. Prof, good afternoon. Thank you for being here, and thank you for having this large heart to take this big bull by the horn, that is the president of the country. You've talked about aspiration is to see that the youth are empowered. And I want to ask that looking at the agricultural sector of the country, women and youth are the bulk of the workforce. And we know that in the past, Nigeria has been one of the leading producers of many crops. I want to name them. There are so many here. No granite, cotton, cocoa, and so many of those things, crops are there. But we know of recent, many countries have taken the leading position of those crops. I don't know what the government will do in terms of programs and policies. I will see that we go back to that enviable position in agricultural production and export. That is my first question. The second one is about export. Our exports have been bedeviled with so many challenges. We could know that just a few years back, our cowpea, that is the white beans, and granite were rejected by the EU market. And again, we know that trying to export yam to the international market, they got rotten in transit. And we have so many of these problems that have bedeviled the export of our produce. China is taking that advantage. Today, he has started packaging and exporting gari and acha. And we have the comparative advantage for these crops. So I want to know what is your intention, or what will your government do to address this export deficiency for these crops, and maybe to see that our crops again are acceptable and competitive in the international market. That's the second question. The third question I have is that recently we hear that Nigeria boasted of generating about $1 billion for the export of fertilizers. And when you look at the country, farmers are really lamenting because of the high price of this commodity, lack of availability of the commodity. And I don't know how the government will balance the situation by making the commodity available and affordable and still generate the foreign revenue that is needed. And then the last question I have, maybe if you can just address that too, is the hardest farmers crisis. If you are going to be a president, you definitely have to address that. It's a very serious national security problem, and it's affecting food production. Many policies and programs have been put in place to address this issue. Some of the policies and programs have been rejected by so many people, as we have heard about that. Now, I want you to tell us and to make us know how you will what will your government do differently that will be acceptable and implementable to address the serious issue of herders and farmers crisis? Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Agai. We'll be taking intervention from Dr. Anjide, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the wonderful presentation. And I believe there are a number of questions that Nigerians, and clarifications that Nigerians will love to take from you. Let me start with the education sector, which is your primary constituency. There are startling statistics that shows that the educational sector needs a number of reforms. Let me reel out some of the statistics. About 20 million children out of school according to UNESCO report. And there are issues of recurring ASU strike and a number of issues. So give Nigerians an insight of what they should expect regarding educational sector reform if you are elected president. Secondly, I would want you to also give Nigerians an insight about how you intend to reverse the statistics on multidimensional poverty. And I'm happy you also mentioned poverty in your manifesto. I think this is important because 63% of Nigerians are living in multidimensional poverty. And you also mentioned the infrastructure and housing. So how do you intend to reverse the statistics on housing deficit? According to, okay. And how do you intend to address the issue of poverty? The issue of unemployment. As recent statistics from National Bureau of Statistics indicate that 3.3% of Nigerians are unemployed, especially among the youth and women, and 20% are underemployed. So how do you intend to address these issues? And one thing that Nigerians will really want to know or have an insight is the issue of security. We have a situation where we have simultaneous anti-state actors like bandits, Boko Haram and other terrorist organizations, are waging a campaign of violence against the Nigerian state. We also have issue of piracy. We also have a number of mismatch in terms of addressing the security issues in the Sahel region. And there is so much concern by the international community about the securitization of the Sahel, which affects the Sahelian countries. So how do you intend to address that in terms of diplomacy, in terms of non-military interventions?
Thank you, Dr. Anjide.
Thank you.
I guess that will be all. We are going to take the last intervention from a colleague from Plateau Radio and Television Corporation. Permit me to please ask that when we are making our intervention, please let's stick to the time. We said 5 minutes. We said 5 minutes because we want to also give Professor Imumolen adequate time to respond to the questions and the observations that you have raised. Your turn, madam. Thank you.
Okay. Must commend your bold step to contest election in a country like Nigeria, knowing how our politics is monetized. You're expected to traverse the entire country. I'm worried about your structure across Nigeria, particularly Plateau State, where we are right now. You talked about a youth-driven administration. But looking at the whole here, you said your students. So what about other youths of the country? Are they not going to be part of this administration? And then you insisted that you're going to run a youth-driven administration. Are we saying that those in authority will take a shift so that we have youths occupy those offices? Particularly, I'm interested in oil and gas. As a country, we have a lot of challenges that has to do with our oil and power. You're an industry player. I saw from your citation that you were a senior technical advisor to the Akwa Ibom State Governor. What concrete steps are you taking to reform the oil and gas sector? What should Nigeria expect? Will you, like past administration, say that the price of a liter of oil will drop, or that we should expect an increase? Then I'm also concerned about digital economy and then digital education. What are we looking at? Considering the poverty level, illiteracy level, you also mentioned that in Sokoto, only one student, it's alarming, only one student registered for GCE. I was trying to wrap it around my head. How is it that in a state, only one student? So how do you run this digital economy? You know the terrain in Nigeria, where in some places you move, you don't even have network. So how do you intend to push through with that? Lastly, the remuneration of lecturers and health professionals is the basis for incessant strikes in the country. Year in, year out, we have students stay home for a year. We have health facilities shut down because of remuneration. So are you going to increase the remuneration? Are you going to look into that sector? Or that they will continue to, let me use the local parlance where we say Japa, where everybody is moving out of the country? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Madam, and thank you to all the panelists. I'm sure Professor Imumolen has taken all your questions, all your observations. We'll now give him 10 minutes, 15 minutes at most, to respond to these observations. Professor Imumolen, please.
Okay. Again, thank you for the feedback and the questions that we have received. And let me quickly say this. We need to interrogate presidential candidate the more. Because the position of a presidency, applying for a job to become a president of a nation, is lacking to applying to manage a country. We need to begin to interrogate, ask questions, and pick the best. So I'm very happy for this. So my first question, I'll be very, very precise so that I don't spend so much time. How do we, the Nigerian debt profile, and we have challenge with revenue in Nigeria. We now live in a country where over 110% of our revenue is used to service our debt. You know, we have gotten to that, sadly, to that position. First, we have a whole lot of challenge with our revenue collection processes. I'm meant to understand that some of the students, or let me say candidates here or participants here, also work in various sectors of the public servant and public service and civil servants. So you understand some of these things. We have a lot of loopholes. For example, if a system is properly designed, a system is implemented to capture Nigerian revenue, I'm telling you without mising words, with the information we have, that what Nigeria is generating presently, we have less than 50% of what we are generating going into the coffers of the federal government because of the loophole we have in the system. So one of the first things we'll be doing is to drive an integrated revenue collection system. We are not going to be that government that will be quick at increasing burden on Nigeria, increasing tax. And no, we need to collect tax. But realistically, we are in a position where Nigerians are suffering. So what we do first is to design a system a transparent system that can ensure that all what Nigeria is collecting is remitted to the coffers. We are a population of 200 million. I can tell you, usually there is so much that we can do with that population. So we begin to look at that. Transparent remittance is key. It's not what is happening in the education today. One of the major reasons why the ASU is on strike is the discrepancy between the IPPS and the UTAS, where the operators have been challenged of illegally deducting some funds from staffs who had worked hard. So we must begin to look at a transparent system that is vetted via a third party. You know, when you develop a system, it must be vetted, it must be checked. So we must begin to look at that. That is very key. And when we develop a system, like what we said, building a digital economy to help monitor, to help collect transparently, one is going to solve. Then two, Nigerians today have so many mineral resources that is yet unexplored. If you travel to the forest in Ogbomoso, to Zamfara, we have a country that we are being ripped off our natural resources without having government controlled on them. We have people in Nigeria, sincerely, who are bigger than the institution. We have people in Nigeria who are richer than Nigeria because they make money from the pain of Nigeria. So we must begin to neutralize those effects and ensure that Nigerians and Nigerian people earn the wealth of Nigeria. It's key. Nigeria is rich, we are wealthy, but our wealth lies in the pockets of corrupt leaders. We must begin to take back that wealth and give it to Nigeria. And that can only happen by running a system that will strengthen our institution. So human capital development. You cannot generate wealth if you do not invest in your people. There would be high level of unemployment when Nigerians don't have